If you're denying soft tissue, you're denying reality, and that's way more dangerous than a communicable disease.
Welcome to Real Science Radio. Doug, it's good to have you back in the studio.
Hey, it's great to be back in studio, Fred, talking about real science on Friday again with you. And today we're going to jump into something pretty fascinating. We've got a list of 10 things that don't seem as old as we were all taught back in school.
Yeah, so years ago, Bob and I started our list shows. And the very first one we ever did was the list of not so old things. So this list is loaded. There's over 50 powerful examples that blow holes in the whole deep time story that you hear.
50?
At least 50.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually had AI count them.
Oh.
You think I'm going to go in there and count all that?
Hey.
The mainstream media, the education system, they've been pushing deep time, and that's what most people believe. The vast majority probably believe it. So today, you and I are going to dive into our 10 favorites. So I picked 10 out of there, and you picked your share, and I picked my share, and trust me, you're going to want to buckle up for this one.
Buckle up.
This is just stuff a lot of people, in the YouTube universe have not heard of, or even, our radio audience. I think we did a top 10, or we did a list show years ago. I mean, it's been a while since we've done them.
Yeah.
So it's time to get this material out on YouTube.
I love it. And I love the title. It's very Bob Enyart, the list of not so old things.
Yeah,
Only Bob could come up with that title. And for those of you who like evidence that makes you rethink the timeline of the Earth, you're going to love this. Our producers will throw up some visuals along the way, help you understand what we're talking about. Should be a lot of fun. And so where do we start, Fred? With it, we got 50 to choose from. What made the very first?
The very first one I thought was good to introduce the audience is rapid Finch evolution. Because if you know anything about Darwinism, Darwin started believing in evolution when he, studied the finches.
Yeah.
Galapagos Islands.
Darwin's finches are pretty much the sacred icon of evolution that's introduced to all kids in grade school because kids in grade school like birds.
Yeah.
And so Darwin's finches are iconic, and that's the story, right?
Yeah, they were supposed to evolve over millions of years.
Millions of years, that's right.
That's what kids are taught.
But in recent years, scientists have documented a brand new species of finch appearing in, you got your seatbelt on? 2 generations.
Two.
Not
like a zillion to get it to millions of years old.
That's right.
2 generations. Unless birds have a generation of 100,000 years.
No.
I don't think they do.
No, they don't hang around that long. Individuals from a single finch species on a U.S. bird reservation in the Pacific were introduced to a group of small islands 300 miles away. And at most, in 17 years, like Darwin's finches, they have diversified their beaks, have adapted related muscles, their behavior has adapted to fill various ecological niches in at most 17 years.
Yeah, so that doesn't sound like, slow, gradual evolution to me. And it's right there, the Galapagos Islands that, Darwin championed. So this is instead obviously strong evidence for design that God programmed into birds, the ability, into all animal life, right? The ability to adapt to their ecological zone, their environment.
Quickly.
And that's what we see here. So beaks changing size, this and that, that's not evolution as you would think it. It's small scale adaptation.
Yeah,
so.
And it's not mutation, it's adaptation.
Adapt.
Exactly.
Very good. Now, next, opals.
Opals. Okay.
Opals, right? Now, and this really surprised me, just how quickly opals can form. And now, we don't want you to be confused with the Buick opal, which was formed from about 1968 to 1973 in North America, and then that particular opal pretty much died off. What we're talking about...
I'd never heard of that. You showed that picture to me. I'm like, I heard of the Javelin, a lot of really bad cars. So this thing was, what, German or something?
Yeah, it was a German company owned by General Motors, and I just remember I thought it was a really neat looking car when I was 5 or 6 years old.
Wasn't that back when it was Colonel Motors? Sorry.
Lieutenant Colonel Motors. That was a while back.
You're so old.
But my dad made fun of this car because he looked at it as another milestone of America becoming like Europe, and gas prices had gone crazy, and they brought these little tiny cars, and my dad, I think he felt that masculinity was being insulted with these ugly little cars. I thought it was pretty cool, but that was the Buick Opal. But we're talking about a different type of opal. We're talking about the amorphous silica mineraloid that you find digging in the dirt in the earth. And we've been told that they take hundreds of thousands of years, maybe millions of years to form. But it turns out they can form in just weeks or months under the right conditions. And that's not just surprising, it's a game changer for geological dating models.
That's a bingo.
I mean, a leading authority on opals, Alan W. Eckert, observed that, quote, scientific papers and textbooks saying that the process of opal formation requires tens of thousands of years, perhaps hundreds of thousands, not true.
And there's a 2011 peer-reviewed paper in a geology journal from Australia where almost all of the world's opals are found. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So it's reported in that journal that the new timetable for opal formation involving weeks to a few months and not the hundreds of thousands of years envisioned by the conventional weathering model. So, and then apparently there's, per a 2019 report from Entomology Today, opals can even form around insects.
Oh, man.
So unless those insects are millions of years old or hundreds of thousands of years old, you know, that's just not going to happen, Doug.
No, it's wild. And I was doing a little research on opals. I didn't know this. Opals were valuable in the ancient world until, I think it was the 1800s. These vast quantities of opals were uncovered in Australia. And the world global opal market just went down through the cellar because all of a sudden, these rare minerals that everyone thought were really valuable, turns out they formed every 15 minutes in Australia, and they're just boatloads of them now, and they're not all that valuable anymore. Although some of the unique colored opals can still be pretty valuable, but they form pretty quickly.
It reminds me of the Banggai cardinal. So that's a fish that used to be real expensive in saltwater. You go to a saltwater store and they're super expensive. This would be actually before I got into, you know, being a saltwater aquarium enthusiast.
Yeah.
They were super expensive, and then they found a boatload of them off of Hawaii, and the price just plummeted. Now it's one of the cheapest fishes you can buy. It's the one I get is it's a black and white one. I call it my Al Davis fish because it's the Raiders and it's got a grumpy look on it. So, for those who remember Al Davis, but same kind of thing. All of a sudden you have so much of it. It's not so rare anymore, and it's not so expensive. In fact, it's dirt cheap. So, Doug, number 3. I'm looking at you right now. I'm trying to see. I can't tell. Do you have blue eyes?
Sometimes. I have light-colored eyes.
Yeah, they look like they're almost blue.
Sometimes they can be blue. It kind of depends on the hue of the light in the room.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm considered blue eyes. I'm not considered brown eye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is number 3 on our list, where blue eyes come from.
Yeah. And it turns out all blue-eyed people are believed to come from a single genetic mutation that occurred just 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. Yeah, and probably this was a mutation because having light-colored eyes is actually not beneficial.
Interesting.
Yeah, because if you have dark irises, I learned this from Bob Enyart driving from Montana. We were driving from Montana and everything was white because it was December and it was snow. And first thing in the morning, I start driving and I'm like, I'm driving along and Bob looks at me and he's like, Doug, I don't want to die. He said, maybe you should pull over. Why don't you take a nap and I'll drive for a while? He said, I feel great. And I said, yeah, I don't know what it is, Bob. This white is just really killing me. He said, it's because of your light eyes. He said, I have dark brown eyes, so it doesn't bother me as much.
So, Doug, I know you're in the medical field, so you probably would know more about that than a lot of people would. I don't know if you've ever dealt with treatments for eyes.
Well, not for eyes specifically, but I did learn about this mutation that it seems to me it's a mutation, like I say, because it doesn't seem to be helpful for those of us who have lighter colored eyes.
Yep. So from Science Daily, they report that research shows that people with blue eyes have a single common ancestor A team at the University of Copenhagen have tracked down a genetic mutation which took place 6 to 10,000 years ago and is the cause of eye color of all blue-eyed humans alive on the planet today. 6 to 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Isn't that a number commonly used by Christians? Yeah,
It's
based on genealogies and different theories on how you add them all up.
Yeah.
You get somewhere between I say 6 to 7,000 years because I'm kind of more on the Henry Smith side of chronology.
that's where I
Based on the
fall.
show, yeah.
Yeah.
The great interview you had with Henry Smith last year.
6 to 7,000. I'm not willing to give him more than 7.
That's
myself. 10 seems
Bob
a bit
was always
much.
a 6 to 10 guy.
Yeah.
We'll find out someday.
Yeah.
So
Bob was being graceful, offering grace. But that is a pretty short time frame, especially when you think about the massive population of blue-eyed folks today. I mean, when you look around, and I've just noticed this in the sales field, is that like almost all salesmen are blue-eyed. Almost all. I mean, white guys anyways. If it's a white guy, he's got blue eyes. I don't know what it is, but it's something about... So the mutation made him shifty and shady as well.
Would you like to buy a watch?
Anyway.
exactly.
But 6 to 10,000 years, traced back to one guy, and so we owe our blue eyes to this one Nordic, I'm sure, Swedish guy or something.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of mutations, so most human mutations are recent. This is item number 4.
That's right. And speaking of humans, right, geneticists say that most of the mutations we carry today occurred in just the last 200 generations, and that's 4 to 5,000 years if you're counting by generations. And that sure sounds like a biblical timeline to me, Fred. Not a march of progress of millions of years.
Yeah,
no.
that's right. And you know what's related to this topic is one of my favorites, and it's always been this 6,000-year-old mitochondrial Eve. I mean, this is what was reported in science magazines. So they quote 6,000-year-old mitochondrial Eve. So Ann Gibbons wrote about this this finding. She said, regardless of the cause, evolutionists are most concerned about the effect of a faster mutation rate. For example, researchers have calculated that mitochondrial Eve, the woman whose mitochondrial DNA was ancestral to that in all living people, lived 100,000 to 200,000 years ago in Africa. But then using the new clock, this is what she said, she would be a mere 6,000 years old. Yeah. The very next sentence, by the way, she says, no one thinks that's the case.
Oh, yeah, right, of course.
Doug, I'm pretty sure us young Earth creationists have thought that was the case.
Yeah.
Made that prediction and said, this is what the kind of science is actually going to reveal. So how do they get the number back to 200,000 years? They mix back in chimp DNA.
Right.
So, which is circular reasoning. You know, they assume evolution, so they say, you evolved from, chimp-like ancestors, so let's get that DNA back in there and get this number back to 100, 200,000 years because we don't want people believing the Bible.
Right,
But this is what the science shows. This is so cool.
And mitochondrial Eve should have been one of the bombshell scientific discoveries of the century. It should have been.
But exactly.
But it was an early example of bias, fake news, fake science.
Fake news.
It was all of that.
Propaganda.
It's been going on for quite some time.
Yep.
Yeah, we do think it's the case. We go with 6,000 years for mitochondrial Eve.
Yeah. So
In fact, we go with the name Eve, too.
We do, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we definitely got that part right. So number 5, right in the middle of our list, we went ahead and stuck dinosaur soft tissue. It's probably number 1 for most people because it's the most powerful argument that you can use. You know, Abby, in my interview with Abby, with her interactions with college students, this is the one she would always bring up, and nobody knows about it, even though even Harvard and Stanford's on board. Man. And Abby shared this long list that we've got of, soft tissue that they've discovered, and not only dinosaurs, but, other creatures, even trilobites.
Yeah.
Soft tissue, finding, collagen and this stuff in trilobites. So anyways, there's no way this stuff can be millions of years old.
Well, that's what you say, but nobody believes that.
How dare you?
Yeah, the soft tissue in dinosaur bones, the fact that Abby's circle of influence are clueless about it, it proves that a successful propaganda campaign can be run against real science. Because soft tissue in dinosaur bones, talk about a bombshell. I mean, that's the bombshell of the century.
The bombshell of bombshells.
What a bombshell.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's astonishing that college-educated people are unaware of it, completely unaware of it.
Oh, yeah.
Which, that's not really their fault. That's someone's fault.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the education
You're right,
system.
you're
I
right.
mean, you can't blame a young kid because he didn't get the information. Somebody's hiding that information, and well, we've been trying to get it out for years. That was one of Bob's passions.
Yeah.
Was to spread the word about dino soft tissue.
Yeah, and one of the people that Abby mentioned, she had a Discord conversation with him. Well, he turns out he's one of these STDers. You know, an STD person with STD, an STDer. It's not a TDS, which is Trump deranged syndrome, which maybe they have that too.
Okay.
But you know an STDer.
No, you'd have to enlighten me on that, Fred. I know nothing about anything at all to
Bob
do.
came up with this term, soft tissue denier.
That's right, soft tissue denial. Okay.
So that's what we have. We have, even though
Fred, I'm in the medical field.
Yeah.
You know that, and so you throw STD at me, and I'm like, Fred,
Yeah, what
I
are
didn't
you
think
talking about?
I didn't think we were going to go there on the show. Okay, a soft tissue denier,
soft tissue
which
denier.
is worse even.
It's worse. It's so much worse.
Because there's no cure for that.
Yeah.
If you're denying soft tissue, you're denying reality, and that's
Yeah.
way more dangerous than a communicable disease.
we should start a business, to help these people. We help TDSers, STDers.
If we could
Everybody on
come,
the-
we'll come up with one more acronym, and we've got it. I'm all for that, Fred. Let's get it up there.
So it was really cool. Scientists, they found, again, stretchy blood vessels, cells, and proteins, and even DNA in these so-called fossilized bones. Dinosaurs are not fossilized. And you're even finding DNA. So it's what Discover magazine called a dangerous discovery.
Yes, Schweitzer's dangerous discovery.
Yes, how she erased a line between past and present. So this has been reported on. Just not enough people know about it.
Yeah, well, with Mary Schweitzer, it goes back to 2006, 7. It's almost 20 years.
Yeah.
She was on 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about that. Should have been a bombshell.
And they don't mention it in the schools.
No.
Learning all this
And you would think that any college kid, high school kid would ask, how do you preserve biological material like blood vessels and blood cells and collagen? How do you preserve it for that long? Because you don't.
Yep.
That tissue should have turned to dust ages ago.
And that's why you need to subscribe to our channel, because you hear a lot of real science and you're going to hear a lot of the truth, stuff you haven't been hearing. So now here's your opportunity. Subscribe to our channel. You'll get all of this kind of stuff all the time.
That's right. We will link to sources, source material, mainstream media, scientific, peer-reviewed journals, credible, well, I say credible, I use that in quotation marks, but accredited universities where this soft tissue is documented. This is real and should have been the most earth-shattering discovery in paleontology ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Doug, number 6 is Mount St. Helens.
Oh,
Fast
yes.
Fast geology.
Mount St. Helens. I hear it's rumbling again. The northwest is rumbling again. And so Mount St. Helens basically is like a living science lab. After the eruption in 1980, we watched entire canyons and layers of rock carved and formed, not in eons, not even in years, but in days, over a weekend, over a fortnight. Yeah.
Yeah, and if there were aliens and they plunked down on our planet and they were, ran through our education system for even just 6 months, they'd come out and they'd go, oh, look at those layers, millions of years.
Yeah, of
here
course.
And here, and this took millions of years to form. It's like, oh, sorry, dude, this has happened in days, not even weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
A canyon carved out by water with a little river running down the middle, the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that carved that out pebble by pebble over millions of years. No. So,
Yeah, it happened over about a 2-week period.
Yep.
And then, of course, one of Bob's iconic statements, remember the nautiloids.
Yeah.
Remember the nautiloids, right? In the Grand Canyon, there's a limestone layer averaging 7 feet thick that runs the 277 miles of the canyon and beyond, that covers hundreds of square miles and contains an average of one nautiloid fossil per square meter, along with many, many, many other dead creatures, all in this one particular layer. And 15% of these nautiloids were killed and then fossilized, standing on their heads vertically. That, like, standing up on their heads vertically. Did they stand there for 1.5 million years while no, it happened catastrophically, similar to what happened with Mount St. Helens. Yeah.
Yeah, and just the fact that they're standing on their heads, you know. It's
Yeah.
not like they just plunked there in the millions of years they got buried with them standing on their heads.
No.
That'd be quite the trick. So,
Yeah.
number 7, Doug, is cave formations that don't take ages.
Oh, caves. Yeah, because caves look old. Yeah, caves
you know,
definitely
and,
look
and we're
old.
talking about this, you know, stalactites and stalagmites.
Yeah.
And we've always been told, for many years, we were told how they take thousands of years to form.
That's right. But now we see that they form under bridges that were not built millions of years ago. They form in mines and even in old pipes, and they form in just decades.
Yes.
That's
and
right.
so before we get to more on this, Doug,
Yes.
this is a number 7. So that means we're kind of, since we're halfway through this, we're in the 7th inning stretch.
The 7th inning stretch. I like it. We get to relax.
And so what we're going to do at the 7th inning stretch is we're going to practice this. Because
Oh, here we go.
it's time for the interesting
All right.
fact of the week.
Okay.
Are you ready, Doug?
Everybody's ready. Everyone's on the edge of their seat, including me.
Okay, think of the periodic table. What is the symbol for iron? The symbol for iron.
I know this. I know this because I've needed to know this before, and I knew it before. The symbol for iron. Ah, this is going to be so embarrassing when you say it because I know it. It's not R-O.
The first letter is F.
F-A. Okay, wait, give me 25 more tries. I'll get it.
It's a vowel.
It's a vowel?
Yeah.
F A E I O U F E.
There you go.
I knew it before, but
And I won't buzz you on this next one, but do you remember the atomic number?
oh,
Number of protons, you know.
there's no way I know that.
Okay.
Fred. You might as well just buzz me.
Well, I won't, I
okay.
won't buzz you on that one.
Have mercy on me.
It's 26.
Okay. All right.
All right. Okay, so back to cave formations. So
Well, wait. Is there a reason it's Fe? Is there? Did they just do that by? Is it because it's a
I
Ferris?
don't know. Maybe you know, Jack and the Beanstalk. Maybe that giant came across, you know, some iron, and they said fee.
Fie, fo, fee, foy, fee, 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 fee.
Well, so we're gonna have to look into how they came up with that periodic table. If
You're
they
not buying that one.
well, I don't know if they did it just to punk me.
Yeah.
All right.
If you know why they came up with FE, I'm not sure if we'll remember to look that up. So leave it in the comments. We do try to read the comments. We don't respond a lot. We do when we can, because you know, hey, we're
If
busy
you help
over
us
here.
figure out FE, we will respond.
We'll at least like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Now
so
back to the caves.
Back to the caves. Have you been to Carlsbad Cavern? I went there as a kid.
Is that right?
Yeah, Colorado. We're driving to see my uncle in Texas, and went to Carlsbad Caverns.
Yes.
Yeah, and went in there. I don't remember it much because I was maybe 7, 8 years old. But have you been there?
We went on our 8th grade field trip. We went to Carlsbad Caverns, and it was pretty spectacular, I must say, because I was, 8th grade, I don't know, 12, 13. I mean, I was old enough to be aware, and it was pretty impressive. And, of course, we got the whole evolutionary timeline spiel as the tour guide took us through there. It was 8th grade science class field trip. Carlsbad Caverns.
I thought you might have been there because you live near there, right?
Yeah,
You grew up
yeah.
near
Well,
there.
we lived out in the middle of nowhere, out in West Texas, and Carlsbad Caverns was the closest interesting thing. Which that's pretty bad when you're the closest interesting thing is Carlsbad Caverns. You know you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the National Park Service repeatedly changed the sign at the cave entrance, which, according to
That's
the
right.
U.S. forest geologist Jerry Trout, at first it claimed that the formation took 260 million years. And then it went down to 8 million years.
Wow.
You know,
Okay, that's
it's
pretty
shrinking.
dramatic.
And then it got down to 2 million years. I mean, this thing's
wait
really
a second.
shrinking fast. and then finally they got tired of doing that. They just took the sign down altogether.
They thought it was going to become obvious
Yeah.
that they were just making stuff up.
Exactly.
Just please.
So, and if you want documentation on that, go to youngearth.com. It's a great website for all things that show that the Earth is not that old. It's young. Now, I've always said I think the Earth is old because 6,000 years is really old.
That's a long time, yeah.
You know, that's major codger status.
Yeah, 6,000 years is old. And then, people talk about it's unreasonable to think that God could have created everything in 6 days. And I'm thinking, well, wait a second. He is the Almighty God with all power, all knowledge, and it took him 6 days. I mean, that seems like a lot of time to invest for the Almighty God. So it was a big job. It took 6 days. 6 days is hey, after 6 days, I need a break.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
There's a lot of stuff in 6 days.
And 6,000 years,
what's out there
that's pretty
in
old.
creation. So, here's a cool one, Doug. Petrified wood in months.
Ah, yes, petrified wood.
In months. Now, wait a minute. That's not millions of years? Because
Well-
everybody, when they see petrified wood, they just think super old, ancient, right?
Well, that's what I was taught in 8th grade science class. Before we went off to
Yeah.
Carlsbad Caverns, the one thing they made sure we knew was that petrified wood formed over millions of years, of course. But researchers have duplicated petrification in months. Under the right chemical conditions, it's fast. There are some Japanese scientists who've proved creationist research and published their results in the peer-reviewed journal Sedimentary Geology, showing that wood can and does petrify rapidly. Modern wood significantly petrified in 36 years. These researchers concluded that wood buried in strata could have been petrified in a, quote, fairly short period of time in the order of several tens to hundreds of years. Yeah.
So let's stop adding 3 or 4 zeros at the end of that.
Exactly.
So next time you see petrified trees, audience, and if you're new to Real Science Radio and you've believed all this stuff of the Earth being billions and billions of years old and the universe being billions and millions, there's so much evidence against that. And so don't let the brainwashing kick in. We're trying to get you past that brainwashing that occurred at public school. I went through the same thing. I believed this stuff for 30 years of my life.
Yeah.
I got mad in a way. I was frustrated. I was like, how did I let myself get brainwashed? Because you just you're not exposed to this evidence against this brainwashing. Well, now you are.
That's
with
right.
Real Science Radio.
That's right.
Don't think, millions of years in Jurassic type things. Think recent and a lot of this stuff.
At least be willing to question the orthodoxy.
Yep.
And that takes us to Squid Ink. Squid Ink, right?
Basically still wet.
Right, still wet squid ink that was supposedly, how old was the squid ink that they...
They claim that the squid, the particular fossil, was 150 million years old.
Millions.
Now that's old.
That's a long time for ink not to dry.
150 million year old squid, and you could still write with the ink. They were able to draw it up into a writing instrument and actually draw. Now, we don't know that they put this on udon noodles and ate it like my wife does with squid ink, which is really weird to see somebody put black ink on noodles and then eat it. So we don't know that we would have recommended that you eat this ink, but
People actually eat the ink?
yeah.
That's gross.
It's
did not know that.
It's considered something
I
of a
always learn
delicacy.
something new on Real Science Radio.
That's right. That's right. So you start out with perfectly good noodles, and then you spray this black ink on them, and it makes them better, I guess. I'm not that adventurous of an
That's
eater.
one of those things I'm one of those, I don't think I'd try that. I know some people don't like texture. I just don't like trying weird things.
I'm a pretty normal guy.
Yeah.
Rocky Mountain oysters, never going to happen for me.
No, I won't eat them. No. Not interested in trying. I'm not a very adventurous eater, and my wife has offered me the squid ink noodle, and I've just said, I'm good with just noodles. So this ink, we don't know if it would have tasted good, although I think I think the older the ink is, it's kind of like wine or olive oil, or no, not olive oil. What's the what's the Italian black? You put it in your olive oil. It's the delicious vinegar, black vinegar.
Yeah.
Balsamic vinegar.
Anyway,
I can't remember.
anyway, it's like that.
Yeah.
So a little bit older is better, but 150 million years, probably pushing it. But this squid ink probably wasn't 150 million years old, since it was still wet and not dehydrated. It had not decomposed. The British Geological Survey's Dr. Phil Wilby, who excavated the fossil squid, said, quote, "It's difficult to imagine how you can have something as soft and sloppy as an ink sac fossilized in 3 dimensions, still black and inside a rock that is 150 million years old," unquote. And like, Phil, yeah, that is hard to imagine. In fact, the only way you could get to that would be with a very active imagination, because it's just not possible.
Wow, the land of make-believe.
The Daily Mail states, quote, "The black ink was of exactly the same structure as that of today's version of squid ink." It's the same stuff.
Exactly the same structure.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's supposed to be 150 million years old. Okay, yeah, whatever. Yeah. Okay, so if you run out of ink and you can't go deep sea fishing and get yourself a squid or an octopus,
There you go.
look for their fossils.
That's right.
And I have to confess, Doug, I was part of a group of guys. I have to admit this on air, and I felt bad for the little guy, but we killed an octopus.
I don't even know who you are anymore.
Is that right?
We were deep sea fishing. First time I ever did that.
Oh.
Probably last time I'll ever do it. I'm not super. Well, I would probably do it again for like 4 hours, but not 8, 9, 10. But anyways, we caught an octopus.
Is that right?
And that thing, we put it, the guys, we were with the tour group, or a group of guys that, lived in Costa Rica. They were natives, and they did this all the time. They put it in one of their coolers in the back, because I guess they like to eat that stuff. And the thing was trying to crawl out of the cooler.
Oh,
so I'm like, hey, shut that lid over there. That thing was getting out. Don't know what the heck that thing will do. But it left ink there was black stuff on the bottom of the boat. It was pretty interesting.
So did you guys kill the octopus because you were afraid that he was going to attack? Or?
Well, we caught it on a hook, and so then it just gonna.
So it was wounded.
It was wounded.
I see.
So, they didn't throw it back in. They wanted to eat it.
Okay, well, I have eaten octopus, and I'll tell you what, Fred, when it's done right and fried in butter, it's
good.
Delicious.
I do like it. Calamari, right?
Well, octopus isn't quite calamari.
Oh, it's not?
Calamari's squid, speaking of squid. But,
okay.
But octopus is octopus, and when it's done right, it's pretty good.
Okay. Maybe I've never tried octopus.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually willing to try like the seafood stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so there we have it.
Well, we're to number 10, the last one that we're going to do, even though we could do, many more. There's many more on our list of not so old things.
Yeah, we'll link to that.
So we might as well close with the big one that we've talked about quite a bit, carbon-14 found in ancient stuff.
That's
supposed to be millions of years old, but yet we're finding carbon-14 in there, and we'll explain why that's a major problem.
Yep, carbon-14 keeps showing up in places it absolutely shouldn't be.
Yeah, like in diamonds, natural gas, and even dinosaur bones. We've talked about dinosaur bones. You find carbon-14. In fact, Real Science Radio offered the scientist who they featured in Jurassic Park, Jack Horner.
Little Jack Horner sat in a corner looking at dinosaur bones.
So Real Science Radio offered Jack Horner, I think it was $10,000 to $12,000.
It got up to, I believe it got up to $24,000 that we had available in cash, ready to go.
If he would carbon date a dinosaur bone, and he refused to do it. Now, why would you refuse the $24,000? If you're so convinced that dinosaurs are millions of years old, you should be willing to carbon date it. But he was afraid of what that would reveal, and they've already done it now. There's been plenty of, there have been secular labs that have dated these bones, and they don't date to millions of years old. In other words, they find carbon-14 in them. And why is that a problem? Because carbon-14, it decays back into nitrogen. It's radioactive, and it has a half-life of about 5,700 years. So every 5,700 years, whatever carbon-14 something has, it's gone. Half of it's
gone.
In another 5,700 years, another half's gone. So you have there's a limit on how much carbon-14 you should find.
Yeah.
And I know the most sophisticated equipment to find carbon-14, it really becomes basically undetectable after 100,000 years or so. I mean, there's still...
It would be theoretically not measurable at about 100,000 years.
Yeah, and yet these things they claim are millions of years old, and we find carbon in them, carbon-14 in diamonds. And diamonds is super hard. How do you contaminate? They try to blame it on contamination. How do you contaminate a diamond with carbon-14 in the middle of it?
Yeah.
Good luck with that one. So, anyways, it's a powerful argument against an old Earth. Carbon-14 has always been a friend of creationists.
That's right.
So.
That's right. It's pitched as an enemy, but it is our friend, and it is there everywhere, which means the items are much younger than you were told they are. They're not so old is what I was trying to say. That's what the list is called. They're just not so old.
Yeah, not so old. So, Doug, that's our top 10.
That's 10.
And,
just 10.
Yeah, and honestly, we barely scratched the surface.
Yep.
So.
The full list has dozens of examples, and if any of this sparked your curiosity, we'll drop the link to the full list in the description.
Yep. And hey, let us know in the comments which of these you found the most surprising.
Yeah.
You know, let us know. And let us know if there's other ones that you find, that you go check out our list. Maybe we don't have one on the list.
Yeah, maybe you've got something new.
Update
for
our
us.
list when we can, and we will.
Yeah.
Find us something else that you can get your name on Real Science Radio. You help add to our list.
That's right. And if you want more conversations like this, like and subscribe and share this with someone who needs a nudge toward thinking differently.
Yes. So, for Doug McBurney, I'm Fred Williams of Real Science Radio. May God bless you.